Hey everyone, this week I'm taking a look at a clone of a fragrance that's been discontinued. Stay tuned. So I've dug into the sample, the Discovery collection for their premium scents, but I hadn't actually smelled any of their regular scents. And it was actually this fragrance that got me into the brand to begin with, the one that kind of made me want to check them out, and that's Smokey Plum from Athena Fragrances. And this is a clone of Plum Japonais. So why don't I read a little bit about that to you. Plum Japonais was originally from 2013, Tom Ford. The perfumer was Jan Vasnier of Givaudan, and he's also done Velvet Orchid, Santal Blush, Vanille Fatale, Success by Trump. I thought that was a funny one. The original marketing notes for Plum Japonais, they said Plum Japonais, as the name suggests, was inspired by the Ume plum. I've always been fascinated by unusual ingredients from exotic cultures, Ford revealed. The Ume plum has a great meaning in Oriental culture. In Japan and China, it is a sacred symbol of spring. I wanted to craft a fragrance around the Ume because it has a texture and aroma that is so luscious. The top notes for Plum Japonais were cinnamon bark, saffron, heart notes of Camellia japonica, cypress, immortelle, plum, and plum liqueur. And in the base, agabois, amber, benzoin, fir balsam, and vanilla. So the Smokey Plum is I think that the notes are largely the same. They describe this on Athena Fragrances as juicy and very smoky plum, settling into a cinnamon plum. Boozy and dry incense and spiritual, subtly oody. Top notes of cinnamon, safraline, which I think is a synthetic version of saffron. Heart notes of plum, immortelle, cognac, and cypress. And in the base, oud, vanilla, smoke, and amber. I have not had the fortune to smell the original Plum Japonais. I've just been a big fan of plum. Plum, to me, has always kind of come across as like it reminds me of like salons, you know, kind of this fancy, clean, juicy, fruity accord. It really is beautiful, and I love plum. 1 Million Lucky has a beautiful plum accord. But one thing to note as well, though, my understanding is plum is actually a fictional accord. You can't get the oils from plum fruit itself to actually be able to make a fragrance oil from plum fruit. So this is just like an approximation, what someone thinks it smells like. And typically, it's going to come across as like a dark, fruity smell. Somewhat like a cherry, though maybe less tart, maybe a little bit more sweet. That's typically what I think of. So what are my thoughts about Smokey Plum from Athena Fragrances? Well, I will say I think this is, I wish I could smell the original. If one of you has a bottle of the original and you're willing to part with a sample, let me know. Because I think this smells amazing. It's had mixed responses from the people around me who have smelled it. Some have liked it, some have thought it smells kind of weird. To me, this smells like October or November in a bottle. It's like a really rich, dark, sweet fall time fragrance. I think, I'm buying this right towards the end of winter, and makes me a little bit bummed because I feel like this is going to be a little bit too much for summer. It's because it's really rich and spicy. It's like a rich, dark, spicy, sweet fragrance. And I think this thing would sing in the fall time. Like, to me, this smells like the spices of like October in a bottle. And I've worn this now about 5 or 6 times, and the times I've worn it, it lasts a really long time, projects quite nicely, warms up on the skin, and when it warms up on the skin because of all the spices, it comes across really lovely. But you do run the danger of, like, my sister-in-law would call me a candle with a fragrance like this. But for me personally, this is right up my alley. Like, this is like a nice, like, engaging, clean, dark, rich, spicy fragrance. So I haven't smelled the original Plum Japonais. Wish I could, haven't, but I do have a few fragrances here that I think are kind of, they don't smell anything like this. I wouldn't say that they are anywhere close to smelling like this. What they are is kind of the similar vibe, or in the same kind of category, or in a similar class, I guess. So I've got 3 fragrances. I figured I would do that to demonstrate if you've never smelled Plum Japonais or you've never smelled Smokey Plum. I've got 3 fragrances that kind of fit the vibe of this fragrance to kind of communicate that to you if you've never smelled it. First up in that regard is going to be Spice Bomb Infrared, and this is the EDT, though I think the EDP would probably be just as well for this. Furthest away of the 3 here, but I think fitting because it's got the cinnamon, the red fruits, and then just the other spices that come with Spice Bomb. Kind of has that, it evokes a similar sort of vibe as the Smokey Plum does. Doesn't have the kind of incensey element that Smokey Plum does that the name might suggest, but still, you're kind of in a similar camp. Like they're in the same family, I think. Next up is another one that I think I've described as like another fall in a bottle fragrance, and that's actually Comra from Lattafa, which is, as I think everyone knows, the clone of Angel Share from Killian, or by Killian. This fragrance, the thing that made me think about it is that you've got a lot of those similar spices. I think cinnamon is in this one as well, but you have that boozy note, the rich sweet notes. So this kind of like, think about if you took Infrared and you combined it with Angel Share, kind of aspects of both of those. It has pieces of both of them, a little bit of the booziness, a little bit of the sweetness, still very likable. I would say too that it shares the kind of like performance of Comra. Comra for me lasts a really long time, and Smokey Plum for me, really long time, lasts on the skin, gorgeous scent. And the last one that I think makes the most sense, and I think I've actually said of this one too that it's also fall in a bottle or Thanksgiving in a bottle, and that's Tona Colola from Mancera. Now again, doesn't smell anything like Smokey Plum. This is much more of a cherry Coke, but the rich sweetness of it, it is kind of a heavy sweetness, not cloying, as in, but like dense sweetness. You've got the spices with some sort of dark fruits on top of it. And the Tona Colola here has the cherry, but it's not a really tart cherry. It's a very soft, sweet cherry. So I think that it's more fitting to be a little bit more similar to the Smokey Plum. So those are 3. I figured it'd be kind of useful just to kind of paint a vibe picture at least of kind of what Smokey Plum is putting down. But if you've smelled it, let me know. If you've smelled the original Plum Japonais and you've smelled this one, let me know. I'm curious how close it gets. I think it's incredible, and I'm probably going to order some samples for this series and revisit these because I think it'd be interesting to know how close it gets. But still, I love that companies are doing clones of discontinued fragrances. I've got this one, I've got another 2 that I'm aware of, but I plan on picking up some more because I think it's kind of fun. Something that was so well loved that other companies are cloning discontinued fragrances of it. That's right up my alley. You know, the whole thing that I'm after here, again, smelling interesting things, different things, novelties, stuff like that. So this certainly fits the bill, but also it just happens to be right up my alley. I think Plum Japonais and Smokey Plum, if it smells anything like Plum Japonais, it's very much the style of fragrances that I like. I think it's a very fun, interesting, unique fragrance. So, shame that it's gone, but I'm glad that there's still something here. Again, another banger from Athena. They can't seem to miss for me. But yeah, I'll talk to you next week and hope you have a good one. Bye.